Everyone, welcome back to the Beyond the Arc podcast. Once again, I'm here with my co-host Yash. Yash, how you doing on this Monday evening?
Doing great. Excited to talk hoops.
Yeah, right now in-season tournament is going. I actually have on a different monitor right now the Pelicans Jazz game pulled up a little bit. Um, Pelicans are an interesting team. We'll talk about them in a sec, but I just want to get your thoughts, Yash. Like, what are your overall opinions on the in-season tournament? The first annual in-season tournament for the NBA.
Great. Going into it, I was a fan just because who's going to say no to potentially more competitive, more entertaining basketball? And I don't think they've disappointed in that regard. They definitely delivered. Like the players themselves have come out and said it. Like it's that the environment of the tournament is bringing out the competitiveness, the energy out of teams, out of players, and it's been a lot of fun. And through this tournament, we're seeing a lot of young teams that may have not had a chance to play competitive basketball get the opportunity to do so now. Looking at teams like Houston and New Orleans, and it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think anytime you can bring out more competitiveness, because the regular season, just in years past, it just is drawn on. And like, even at this point of the year, by like, I feel like last year, it was just like these games are just kind of just another game, But I think with the in season tournament, there's a little bit more of a little more energy around it, like you said,
Right.
Which is pretty cool. And I think coming out of the in season tournament, there's going to be a bunch of storylines in terms of, who won the in season tournament? Like, how does this play out in terms of like projecting them moving into the playoffs? So you're gonna be able to carry some of those storylines through a little bit, get you through the regular season until the playoffs start to hit. The end of the season period, though, when teams are kind of doing all these different things, and some teams just want to lose and they're not playing anyone, that gets a little scary. What are your thoughts on the whole thing about like DeRozan came out and said something about like running up the score and like Tatum, that sort of stuff? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, obviously, those guys have competed at the highest level. They know a lot more about the fire that goes into the game and whatnot, the respect and stuff. But I mean, being totally honest, like in the past, like without this in-season tournament format, when guys would run up the score at the end of the game, like you can see why it would be disrespectful to the nature of competitiveness. But like, it's literally written in the rules. Like the point differential, for those of you that don't know, it plays an impact in the standings to break like tiebreakers and whatnot. And so it definitely plays a factor. And so, you know, when it's a part of the game, like worked into the game, like I don't like a lot of like DeRozan's been the first player to really come out and talk like this. Like a lot of other teams and players, they've understood that that's just part of the format. But then again, I don't think it's that big of a thing. Like I think it's DeRozan who's just frustrated with both season and that loss in general. It's just his way of funneling it out.
How the Bulls have fallen since that first year when Lonzo was playing, and I think it was three. Was that so? That was our freshman year of college, I think.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. So only like through 2.5 years ago, basically. I don't know why I love watching that team, and I wrote a bunch of articles about them. Like, that was like first when I kind of started writing more NBA stuff, like more consistently, and that was one of the first teams I kind of locked in on because I thought it was super interesting. Like, yeah, now now
Load up.
they're gonna get blown up. Hopefully, more Kobe White minutes for Chicago. I think he's gonna have a breakout year if he gets the opportunity. But yeah, definitely probably need to move on from this team. I saw like some stat like the Levine, DeRozan, Vucevic, I think is like net rating like -13 or something like that.
Levine said it himself earlier in the year. He's like, we're a team with 3 All-Stars. We got to be better. I don't know. I mean, I think even in that, like, there's some debate to that statement itself. But
yeah, I mean, maybe there's a world where this team's a little bit better, but the ceiling's not there. And you give it Wendell Carter Jr., give it Franz Wagner, and oh man, okay, that is tough to see. I mean, yeah. Anyways, we had this Pelicans game pulled up, and then me and you were talking before the pod. So I think moving forward, we want to kind of do this thing where like the interview segment, we'll bring on someone who maybe covers that team a lot, or follows that team really closely, like we do today with Itamar, who avid follower of the Houston Rockets, also does some written work covering them, and he knew a ton about the Rockets. I mean, I was pretty astounded by like the amount of knowledge he had about just the Rockets overall, just like recalling plays off the top of his head and stuff. I mean, that was pretty dope to hear from him.
Yeah, no, Itamar is one of my favorite followers on Twitter. Like he definitely knows a lot about basketball and in Houston in general, and it's definitely something you guys should look forward to later on in this segment. It was a great talk we had.
Yeah. Before that, we got to figure out which team we want to cover next, and I think we agree. We should. I wish we can do like a wheel thing, like maybe like randomly select the team. That'd be kind of funny. We can just do Pelicans for now, and then maybe down the line we can spin the wheel. I think that'll be a fun exercise. We can preview the Rockets interview a little bit more. I don't want to give away too much of what goes on in the interview, but a really great start for them. #1 defensive rating. Offense is still getting there, but yeah, I thought it was a really interesting conversation, especially I mentioned this a little bit later, but the whole thing about the development now, you're kind of, I mean, you're accelerating, but I think you're also like kind of concentrating your development on Sengun and Green. And you're not, you don't see Cam Whitmore. You're not seeing, I mean, Ben Thompson's been hurt, but you're probably not going to see as much as him, versus like last year. You're playing everyone for the Rockets. You're playing Usman Garuba. You're playing all these young guys, and the team's just terrible. And like, what kind of development is that versus like concentrating on this? I think that kind of whole debate is kind of interesting because you're looking at like Pistons right now who are really struggling, and like how much is this really helping their development as a team?
For sure. And there's a lot of chatter about Houston's, I guess, process in terms of roster building. Like they brought in the veterans, Van Vliet and Brooks, and even off the bench, they paid for Jeff Green and Jock Landale. There are questions about the fit, but right now things are clicking. It's of course early in the year, and teams are still or other teams around the league as well are still figuring out their seams or chemistry. But right now Houston's playing well, and it was a good talk on both sides of the ball.
Yeah. Yeah. Stay tuned for that, for the interview with Itamar, and thank you for listening. Thanks for coming on, Itamar. How are you doing as well?
I'm doing great, man. Excited to get it started.
Yeah, and you said you're joining us from Israel?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's 4 a.m. over here.
Oh yeah, so they should coming on this early, man. It's not easy. I don't know if I could do a podcast at 4 a.m. But you were saying though before that, like this is kind of the time when you have to watch NBA games, because if you're an NBA fan, somewhere else in the world, not like in North America, the times don't always match up super well.
Yeah, I mean, it's if you want to watch the games live, like I know a lot of people here just like record the games and then they try to like not check anything about them, and then once they get off work and they have free time, then they start like watching when they don't know the score. But to watch it live, it's it takes a commitment.
Yeah, we can start with this. How did you get into basketball and like following like the Houston Rockets?
Yeah, actually, it was from NBA 2K. I I really enjoy playing that game. It was in like 2016, I want to say. And I had all these players on my team, and I was like, all right, I don't know any of these players, and I'm really starting to enjoy this sport. So I started getting more into the NBA, watching highlights, learning about the history. And then I wanted to pick a team. So the team I enjoyed most was actually the Warriors, but they just won 73 games. I mean, I wasn't gonna root for the team that also won the championship the year prior. Like, there's no fun in that. No fun in that. So I was like, okay, I want to pick a good team, but not a great team. And then I saw the Rockets. They were pretty good. And James Harden was an absolute joy to watch, which I know is a pretty controversial opinion apparently. But his passing, his dribbling, his shooting, I was amazed by that. And yeah, that's how I picked the Rockets, and things went on from there.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of seen all like iterations of this franchise within the past, 7 years, going from. So at the beginning, was that was hard? Was that Harden, like no Dwight Howard anymore? Like Dwight Howard was gone at that point, or was Dwight Howard still on the team?
Yeah, it was just when Dwight Howard left.
Okay, so it was like kind of Morey Ball era,
Yeah,
going into the rebuild. That was kind of the era even falling, and now there's a little bit of a resurgence right now, which I'm sure we're gonna talk about today. Yash, if anything.
Yeah, no, it's just growing up a Warriors fan, like growing up in Bay. Like I definitely respect that. Like I definitely like back when those battles were heated between those two teams, I definitely did hate Houston and Harden, I have to admit. But looking back, I can appreciate their greatness, and Houston was definitely a great team to select. I will say.
Itamar, we can start here. How is this team comparing at this, relatively early portion of the season? But how are they comparing now to, kind of what your expectations were at the beginning of this year?
It's funny. Like, I think a day before opening night, I was asked about the expectations for the team, and I was like, I tweeted that I'm honestly not as high on them as many on the fan base. I thought they were going to win like 28, 29 games, and like that's nice. Like maybe even 32 if they get lucky, but nothing crazy. But they're gonna reach that mark by early March or something, because I mean they've been so much better defensively than I expected. Like the offense has kind of been like below average, kind of, which that was my expectations. But the defense, I mean, every like the effect Dylan Brooks and Fred VanVleet have had on the team, that's it's been crazy to watch. I mean, Jay Sean Tate, it's somebody who almost the entire fan base on Twitter, they wanted him gone. And I too, I wanted to watch Cam Whitmore get these minutes, Tari Eason get more of a run. But honestly, like Jay Sean Tate has been our best defender off the bench. It's Jeff Green. I mean, I was like, his signing was kind of like an afterthought, but he's been our backup center, and he's been so good defensively at 37 years old. So the entire team is playing above expectations, and it's been awesome to watch.
Yeah, I think the whole thing with how well they're starting right now is like they're playing above expectations. Like, what is going to end up being kind of their median level outcome? Like, maybe is this team performing like above their heads right now? Is that the case, or is this kind of the level where they're going to be able to stay in this play-in range between 7 to 10 the rest of the year? So me and Yash, we had this idea to because the Houston Rockets have been doing so well, so we're like, okay, let's look into them over this next week and a half, 2 weeks. We'll watch the games. So we've been watching all their more recent games, kind of seeing how they've been doing. Yash, I'll throw it to you. What have been kind of your observations so far?
Yeah, no, like Itamar mentioned, like the defense is definitely what stands out. They're coming into today's games, or today being like November 26th, they're second in the NBA in defensive rating, and they're doing it by committee. Like it's not like they have one standout like defensive player of the year caliber defender. They have a lot of guys that fit that scheme, that play aggressive physical defense. Like we have VanVleet, Dylan Brooks, as you mentioned, at the point of attack. But what's been exciting for me is like even seeing the young guys and maybe guys that didn't have established reputations like contribute on the defensive end. Like Aaron Holiday was a big contributor in the game I saw against the Warriors. Like he's someone that's earned Ime Udoka's trust defensively. It's clear that he has sort of an idea in mind for playing guys that compete on the defensive end, especially on the perimeter. And so like seeing guys like Aaron Holiday and even Jalen Green like step it up in recent games. I know Itamar tweeted about that as well. Like seeing them defend by committee, use the size, length, and athleticism, whether that comes with their youth, to putting it to use functionally on the defensive side of the ball has been really exciting to see. And Şengün is another name I'll throw out there. Like as a young guy that's stepping it up defensively. Like I just feel like him and Jokic have parallels offensively, which have been well documented, but even defensively, I'd say like he has pretty good feel on the defensive end. Like they're mostly running him in drop coverage, but he's no standout athlete. Like can't make up for plays. And so the way he can really get stops is by having sound positioning. And for the most part, he's done that this year. And he's he, along with everybody else, has come together to put together the success Houston's had defensively.
Yeah, just for some overall statistics right now, as of November 26th, the Rockets are number 1 right now in defensive rating in the NBA with a 106.8 defensive rating, and they're number 20 in offense at 111.9. So overall, they're 6th in net rating right now. And I mean, just based off, what you saw from this team last year in that state, number 1 in defense is not something probably many people would have expected at all going into this year. So, I mean, a lot of credit to, Ime Udoka, because obviously you bring in Fred VanVleet, Dylan Brooks, Jeff Green, a lot of these veteran guys kind of instilling that culture, because, that wasn't really there last year with certain guys that had like a Christian Wood, a Kevin Porter Jr., that level of accountability on defense. And he's kind of brought that, and he's not afraid to bench their number 2 overall draft pick Jalen Green. You saw that in the what game was that? He got benched down the stretch for Aaron Holiday. It was a game they lost. I think it was Golden State. He got benched down the stretch. They played Aaron Holiday, who's also been really good as of late too. Just like defensive tenacity, shooting the ball, a little bit of secondary ball handling. But yeah, I mean, I'm trying to figure out where to start because there's so many different aspects about this team that are so interesting right now. Here, we can start with how we started this. I mean, this is kind of their notable player, Jalen Green. So, he had a rough start to the year. He's picked it up recently in terms of just scoring output. So, Itamar, what have you seen from Jalen Green so far this season?
Yeah, Jalen really did have a rough start to the season. He's kind of been a player who's good situationally, but it's not like a basketball player. Like things didn't come as naturally for him as they do for many other top picks. So, I mean, Ime talked about it a lot. It's about learning to read and react, to really know what to do in certain situations instead of like having to predetermine his choices in pick and roll or whatever. To instead like read what how the defense is playing you and then react. And we've seen over the past few games. I mean, this is the best passing stretch he's probably had in his career when it comes to kicking out to shooters. He's been a pretty good interior passer since he was a rookie, but he's been kicking out to shooters a lot more, like punishing aggressive nail help. And defensively, he's buying in, and it always felt like Jalen Green was a better defender. It was capable of being a better defender than he actually was. I mean, there are examples from his rookie season where he was guarding, I think it was Anthony Simons and Tyrese Halliburton really well, but he just wasn't consistent. He was falling asleep off ball, and he still has those tendencies sometimes, but it's been much better. It's also it's really like it feels like Ime Udoka, what really is like bringing him down and then building him back up. So to really like change the way, because under Steven Silas, the offense was a lot of just random stuff, just like what the players wanted. It was too much freedom for guys weren't who didn't know what to do with it. Like if you were trying to run that offense with James Harden, I'm sure he would appreciate it. I'm sure it would look great because James Harden is an excellent decision maker, and that's what Steven Silas came to coach. But with Jalen Green, with Kevin Porter Jr., without structure, those guys just kind of went rogue offensively a lot of the times. And now he's playing in a structure. I mean, at the start of the season, Jalen Green was kind of like getting like fourth starter type usage, fifth starter with the actual starters out there. And now it's building back up to where he's one of the main offensive weapons, even with Alperen Şengün, Fred VanVleet out there. And like that's what this team needs. I mean, when in the first couple of games, I mean, they had that huge that 6-game winning streak. For me, it's huge because, well, I've gotten used to 20-win seasons. But they had that streak, and it was because the defense was amazing. But for the Rockets to really hit their ceiling and to be a good team on both ends of the court, it takes Jalen Green to really assume that role of an offensive star, offensive star. So he's been progressing there, and it's been great to watch.
Yeah. So yeah, keeping an eye on Jalen Green. So some of the games I watched was the Golden State one where, he got benched down the stretch. The other one was when he had that huge scoring outburst against the Nuggets when his shot was just raining for him, like coming off a pick and roll, like shooting that pull up three confidently, coming off like stagger screens. Like he was getting his points from anywhere, at any time he wanted, getting to the basket, using athleticism to finish. And that's like a flash, of what he could be as a scorer, like a true 3-level guy that has like probably one of the most bouncy 2 guards in the league. I mean, just by nature of that, he's going to be a really good player. I think what's helped him on the offensive end, at least, is just like you're talking about, there's a little bit more structure. Like VanVleet, Dylan Brooks, even Şengün, like they're helping him out offensively in the numerous ways. And they're very subtle too. It's just like in terms of just ball movement, the ball getting side to side. So he's not attacking like a set defense that knows exactly what's coming. The ball is moving side to side. He'll catch it with, there's an empty corner next to him with him doing a 2-man game with Şengün. Like there's more situations like that where his offense is coming more in the flow of the offense versus him just trying to create from like a stagnant position. So I think that's really helped. And then just a little thing I've noticed too, like Brooks and VanVleet, and like now they have a lot of these veteran guys who understand the importance of screening just like off the ball screening, stuff like that. Because screening, I mean, you get yourself open when you screen. So there's a player I remember in their Denver game where like they're running Spain, and usually sometimes if like the big's kind of far from where the back screener is, the back screener just slips out, goes to the top of the key. But Van Fleet made an effort to go over there, make contact on Jokic, which set himself up for a three at top of the key. And that's just not something like if you had Kevin Porter Jr. there last year, that's not something he was doing, like making an effort to do. So just like little stuff like that adds up, and it creates a more, I think, like cohesive offensive system for the Rockets as a whole. And Jalen Green's the benefactor of that.
I also think that he's I think that he's also shifted his approach himself to be more patient. Like I think he's not looking necessarily for like the first or second look, but he's surveying the floor and making the right read. Like I think someone tweeted this, but Jalen Green has a career high finishing at the rim this year, just because a lot of it is because he's surveying the floor and not necessarily taking it into the big when he's in the paint, but sometimes playing off of two and being more patient and serve and looking for the right play more often than not. And I think that's been a big part of his his continued success throughout the season.
Yeah, Itamar, I mean, what are your thoughts on that? Just like about Jalen.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm the guy who tweeted that. I'm not certain, but yeah, I mean, he's been kind of jump stopping, or like especially playing off 2 feet, where instead of just taking a bad shot against a contest, I mean, he's been like stopping and then either surveying the court, fading away, or just going up quickly and then drawing fouls. I mean, one thing from Jalen Green that even under Steven Silas, like the main even star like factor statistically for him has been that he's been drawing fouls at an incredible rate. I mean, you look at two guards who have drawn fouls early in their career as well as him when it comes to free throw rate. It's basically just him and Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. So it's always like Jalen already had like a couple of star indicators, but he's needed a coach to really, he needed also a coach that will show him the way, and also he needed games to actually matter. I mean, last year it felt like even if he took a bad shot or something, I mean, why does it matter really? I mean, they're gonna lose, or even they're gonna win. Even if they win, it's gonna be like what, a 24-win season instead of a 23-win season. It didn't actually matter. It was all about getting your stats and just like having some fun out there. Now it's actually true basketball, and you can see the results.
Yeah, and I think that shift you're alluding to in terms of playing like real basketball, I think that's a trend within a lot of the rebuilding teams. Because I mean, a couple of years ago, you had a bunch of teams just like playing all these young guys, like their teams were it was just terrible basketball. You look at the Rockets, Thunder were a little bit better, but not great at that time, just from a talent perspective. The Pistons were really good. Portland, when they were tanking down the seat, like towards the end of the season, like it was just kind of bad basketball. And I feel like there's a slight trend in the NBA right now where teams are kind of realizing maybe that's not the best way to like rebuild, is by playing all these young guys with no structure and just build bad habits. Like you want to put them in an environment where you have more veteran players, a coach that they respect and will listen to, and that'll implement a system that plays to their strengths and let them help develop as basketball players. I think that's something Tim Connolly talked about with Timberwolves. He was like, because at that point before they made the Gobert trade, as he was coming in, I mean that was still like a kind of like a rebuilding team, and then he comes in, he's like, the best way for us, we feel, in terms of development is by putting these guys in situations where like winning matters, and that kind of helps breed development. Of course, you need to have that Anthony Edwards, a Jalen Green, you need to have that type of guy first. But once you're there, like kind of building it up, like bringing in Fred VanVleet, bringing in Dylan Brooks, Jeff Green, like those are all really important steps in terms of a rebuild. Yash, you have anything to add?
No, I think that's I think we covered Jalen Green to a pretty extensive extent. I think we should we talk about Apollo HOU? Like I think he's been the young guys has been arguably the most important factor to this success this year. Should we move on to him?
Yeah, go for it. You want to start off, or Itamar? Who wants to start?
I mean, I'll start.
Lead the way tomorrow. We get.
Yeah, Şengün is really been like the head of the snake from the opening tip, really, of the season. it's pretty incredible. I mean, if you asked any Rockets fan, at least on Twitter, of from the first 2 years of Şengün's career, the usage of him was driving us crazy. I mean, he wasn't getting the ball much. Like he wasn't. I mean, you got the ball to Şengün, and then suddenly you used him as a hub. The offense suddenly looked good, and then they stopped doing it. It was absurd. But now, like I saw a tweet from Matt Moore that tweeted that Ime Udoka is looking great by doing something incredible, which is giving the best player the ball more and giving lesser players the ball less. And it's really part of the success, at least offensively, is as simple as that. Şengün is just it's such a tough cover one on one. He's an excellent playmaker, and he's been really. I mean, it's hard to even say how good he's been for 21 year old. Like that guy is younger than Chet, and he's doing things that are that just special offensively. I mean, basically every night the touch he has. I mean, he's now bringing a one-legged fadeaway. He's added a one-legged fadeaway to his game. He's got like he's attempting a lot more Jokic floaters. Also, some more threes. I mean, it's been an excellent season from Şengün. Defensively, he's stepped up. He's being. I mean, honestly, I think Şengün has improved defensively this season, especially when it comes to his effort level. But honestly, the main reason Şengün looks better is that his guards are no longer leaving him for dead inside. Like Kevin Porter Jr. or Jalen Green, they were dying on screens, and then it's okay. Şengün, stop the Avon Fox and Domantas Sabonis like together 2-on-1 with no help, and then I mean, sure, Woody Gobert can do that, but like that's just extremely difficult, and it's unfair to put him in that position. So now he suddenly looks better, and the Rockets defense has succeeded partially due to like some shooting luck, but still, I mean, that defense is they might just stay top 5 all season long. I mean, Şengün is also a big part of it. Like to go from where he was considered last year as a black hole defensively to somebody who's like the only big in the rotation of aside from Jabari Smith, who may be a forward, maybe a big of the best defense in the NBA statistically. I mean, it's pretty incredible.
Yeah, I mean that could just goes to show you like how important like team circumstances. Like people had these assumptions about Şengün. Oh, he's the black hole on offense. Like, oh, he's a bad defender. But like, there's ways on the basketball court for that guy to succeed. You just need the right players around him, and I think you're seeing that right now. And Udoka's kind of empowering him. When I was watching like that Denver game, and I know you always hear the Jokic Şengün comparisons, but they have very similar sort of games in the post. I mean, Şengün isn't as big, but like he has the same sort of like, you know, crafty footwork, up and unders, like get to his hook shot. Like his touch isn't there. That's the same as Jokic. Like you kind of saw that on one end versus the other. Like Şengün would do like kind of a similar move to Jokic. He just wouldn't make the shot. But like they have kind of the same sort of game in that sense. Do you see a lot of similarities between those guys, Itamar, or like, or do you not totally agree with that?
I mean, yeah. I mean, Şengün has also said Jokic is his idol. That's the player he grew up watching. Also, part of the reason why he defends him like incredibly well. It was pretty wild to watch. So there are definitely similarities. I mean, offensively, he's adopted the little float, the hook shots. I mean, he's getting into players' body offensively really well. The passes, being as a hub. Even now, he's running some inverted pick and rolls. I mean, with Fred VanVleet in Jamal Murray's place. Defensively, he's playing higher up. Not always, but I mean, there are possessions where he hedges like Jokic does, and just is being more aggressive defensively. There are definitely a lot of comparison points. He is smaller than Jokic, which will always unfortunately be a factor. Just when it comes to defensively and offensively, how hard he has to work, maybe for his shots when Jokic can just shoot a lot of centers with far more ease. But he is also something that's kind of under talked about. He's more athletic than Jokic, and like it shows. I mean, he's got like whether it's offensively dunking or protecting the paint in transition. I mean, Şengün has some actual like bounce to his game that's really helping him as a rollman. So he doesn't always need those little push shots and everything like that, because he has some posters in his career that would kind of shock you.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I never really thought about that in terms of just athleticism. Yash, what were you gonna say?
Yeah, no, I think no, that's a great point. That's something I've thought about as well. And I think like the athleticism also, you also see it in transition. Like I think you see more possessions of Şengün like grabbing and going coast to coast than you see Nikola Jokic, just because Şengün he's quicker with the ball in his hands. He's able to apply himself on in the open floor better, and I think that's where you see more Sabonis than Jokic, and so I think like I even tweeted this last year. Like I see Şengün is more of a Jokic Sabonis hybrid in some ways, rather than just one more than the other. And yeah, another point I was going to say is like with the like Jokic and like Sabonis, another aspect of the game that I think Şengün has is like just as a role man, like he's able to. He doesn't necessarily have to roll all the way to the rim to get an opportunity, but he can roll short and either get a floater or work into a post up, similar to how Jokic and Sabonis can. And that was always a question mark for me. Like I see, or in the past, I'd see like him scoring out of the post. I'd be like, that I definitely see that. But like pick and roll scoring is something that was a question mark for me. But I think we're seeing a lot of that this year, and we're even seeing the one-legged fadeaway out of the pick and roll as well, where he just sort of like Embiid, where he gets the ball in the middle of the floor and he's just able to rise up in his spot. So it's been fun to watch.
Yeah, Itam, I want to, since we've talked about Jalen Green, Şengün, do you think these two guys are good enough to be the face of this team when they are ready to compete for championships? I know it's a tough question, but it's an important one for the team to consider at this point.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely a tough question. It's impossible to be certain right now. I mean, the one thing I may be certain about is that Şengün is going to be an all-star, a multi-time all-star in his future. But other than that, I mean, Jalen Green may never get over the hump of his decision-making issues, or maybe he's gonna blossom into being a Devin Booker type or a Bradley Beal. So it's it's too hard to know. But the Rockets have time to figure it out because their timeline is not Fred VanVleet's timeline, it's Şengün's. It's Amen Thompson, who's also like pretty good backup option. If Jalen Green doesn't work out, all right, here comes the most athletic basketball player I've ever seen. Like Amen Thompson, or you got Cam Whitmore, who somehow fell to 20. I mean, they have options. So it's about just having the time to figure out, and you're not really gonna know the answer to that until you see them in the playoffs. I mean, and not in the first playoff run. I mean, it's a team that it takes time. It takes time to know. It takes time to learn. So, but I'm not like they probably won't make any rush decisions like when it comes to trading one of the young pieces, because it just doesn't really make sense to do that. But they're gonna take their time, and as they should. We're gonna learn it. We're gonna learn. I mean, how good every player is. It's just their second season for Jabari Smith, for Tari Eason, who have been excellent defensively. Amen Thompson and Cam Whitmore haven't gotten a shot, so they have time, and hopefully it all works out in the end, where it can be like a Warriors type of building, team building exercise, where they their championships were won by guys who were drafted in house, like Steph Curry, Harrison Barnes, Klay Thompson, Draymond. They drafted all of them. If the Rockets can do something like that, then it would be amazing.
Yeah, sorry. I don't like asking that question. Like it's just like an easy way to say it, but it's like, of course they like, you can build a team around them. It's just like, what is the level of difficulty for that roster construction? Like, is it feasible to put like the correct roster around them? So like, in theory, you always can. It's just like, and that goes for any player in the NBA. It's just a matter of like how difficult it would be. That's probably the better question, or the better way to frame it. Yeah, Yash, you have anything to add on that?
Yeah, I think I agree that we'd have to wait a little more because again, this is their first, or it hasn't even been a season yet where they've been able to play in this winning environment, which again can hit or make or break a lot of these guys' start trajectories if that's what they're on. Because one thing I'll add as well is in the environment of winning, like development is a little harder to come by, just because there's I guess less like a shrunk margin of error when it comes to just developing certain aspects of your game. So that's also one thing to consider. But I think it's already encouraging to see guys like Jalen Green, Şengün, even though he was already a great player last season. Seeing guys like that like already have such a sizable impact to the Rockets' success this year, and even as someone that's looking like outside in as just a fan, like I think it's encouraging just to see that those guys have bought in, and it just makes me more optimistic that they can continue to build on this and grow and develop as this team continues to grow as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough in terms of the way you talked about in terms of like development, like shorter margin of error. Like the way I'm kind of thinking about it right now in my head is like, let's say you do what the Rockets do as a team and you bring in these veteran players. I feel like at that point your concentration or your develop is more concentrated on a fewer amount of guys versus like what you did with the Rockets like in years past. You're playing all these young guys. There's young guys everywhere in your rotation, which is more like widespread, kind of giving everyone a shot and see who kind of fleshes out. So I think that's like kind of the two different ways of thinking about it. Like, I mean, of course, the Rockets are not trying to like win right now. It's just I feel like having that structure allows you to concentrate on focusing on those top end guys, which honestly is probably the most important part of your franchise moving forward. It's just who are those top 2 to 3 guys, even top 1 guy that is going to carry you into the next phase of what you'd say like the Rockets being a competitive like team competing for championships, and like how can you build that guy up? So I don't know, that's just two different kind of ways of thinking about like the rebuild. I think is becoming more and more prevalent with you get the Thunder kind of doing the same thing right now. Timberwolves kind of got out of that era. The Pelicans, like there's a lot of teams kind of going through that right now. And yeah, we need to talk about like Cam Whitmore or Tari Eason or like Amen Thompson. And I think all those guys, I mean, Jalen Green, Cam Whitmore, decision-making backcourt. I don't know. I don't know how that'll work. But Amen Thompson, I mean, if he plays anything like Asar, and they play kind of similarly. Amen's a little bit more on the ball, but like the way they can cut, the way they're so good with their hands and just athleticism, and how they impact the game without even being able to like remotely shoot the ball right now is pretty amazing to me. Yeah, Itamar, you have anything to add?
Yeah, I did want to add about Jabari Smith. If there's a guy who's really surprised me this season, it's him. Because I mean, I can't. Jaden Reed is putting up the same numbers as last year. Alperen Şengün has been amazing, but like what we knew that he was gonna be play like really well once he actually got the ball. But Jabari Smith, I honestly think he was like a bottom 15 player last season. He was pretty horrible except for like a 7 game stretch after the All Star break. It got to a point where he wasn't shooting open threes. He wasn't guarding almost anyone. I mean, it was bad. Now, especially since getting benched for Jeff Green in the fourth quarter of 2 Rockets wins, he's bounced back incredibly well. And defensively, especially like one adjustment that Ime Udoka has made, that he's using him to guard the perimeter a lot more. Jabari is 6'10", 6'11", maybe, but it doesn't. He's not actually a good rim protector, unfortunately, at least not consistently at a level where you would want somebody who's like playing center to be. But on the perimeter, I mean, he can move his feet. He's really been showing that a lot more this season. He's being disciplined. I mean, using his length to contest and also being a bit more physical. I mean, a problem with him was that like he just let. I mean, there was a possession from game 2 of the season where Jeremy Sohan just bullied him inside, like from the 3-point line, and it wasn't even a post up. He was just driving, and Jabari was giving him all that space. Over the past few games, that hasn't happened at all. And offensively, he's hitting his threes at finally the rate we expected. The mid-range shots have been awesome. He's getting to the paint more than he did in college. I mean, he's driving on smaller guys, being more of a force on the glass. It's been improvements all around that have made him have turned him from one of the worst high minutes player in the NBA as a rookie to someone who actually is contributing to winning basketball, being a positive on the court for for a playoff team in the West. So that's been a massive jump, and it was really. I mean, I was very concerned that like Tari Eason, for example, Tari Eason was statistically our second best player last year, behind Şengün, like when it comes to the impact numbers, the on and off data. And I was expecting him to take that starting spot from Jabari. it looked like it I think that if Tavi didn't get injured, then he probably would have like gotten the starting spot early. But Jabari got time to work out his issues, and now he's looking like he's somebody who I think really, really benefits from that winning environment. I mean, Jabari is somebody who you can see it's so important to him. Like he's one of the most, he might be the most competitive guy on the entire team. Him and Dylan Brooks. So it's been really great to watch him blossom as uh, as like a fourth, fifth starter on a good team. And hopefully now we can also expand his usage a bit more. I mean, the Rockets bench lineups have been pretty bad. I think that if they get Jabari Smith to be featured more, like as a face-up threat from the mid range, that can help. And we'll see.
Yeah, I remember me and Yash were watching him in summer league when we went to Vegas this past year. Did you go to summer league, by the way, this past year? Itamar, did you go to summer league?
I mean, I didn't, I haven't been to Las Vegas yet.
Okay.
I mean, yeah,
No, it's a fun environment. You should go. But
yeah, I should probably.
yeah, I mean, we were there in the building
day,
when
yeah.
Jabari hit the buzzer beater against Portland. The buzzer
Portland.
beater from like the almost like not half court, a little bit closer than half court, but like where he just like caught it, turned shot, and like that game was kind of rough for him.
Right.
Until like later in the second half, I think he was getting to the basket a little more, hitting some more of his mid-range jumpers, but they weren't falling first half. And then, he comes down, has the composure to hit that type of shot and win the game for your team. That was a pretty cool thing to see from him. And then, yeah, I agree with all the things you're saying about Jabari. And if he wasn't, a positive player right now, he probably wouldn't be starting. The Rockets probably wouldn't be in the position they are now. So just like even looking at big picture, like a high minute, he's their high minute forward, which wing spot's a really important spot. If you have a huge negative guy, like a bottom 50 guy like he was last year, like you said, I mean, they probably wouldn't be where they are now.
For sure. I also had a follow up for Itamar. Like, I've only seen a couple of the games recently, but they are recent, and something that did stand out to me was actually the rim protection they were talking about, but not necessarily at the 5, but like from like a weak side rim protector position where he's like guarding like Aaron Gordon and he's helping off of him. So yeah, I just want to ask you, like, do you think he's played better at the 3-4 than he has at the 5 this year on both sides of the ball, or is it just him picking up the slack recently compared to earlier in the season?
Yeah, I think he's definitely more of a 4 offensively and a 4-3 defensively. I would say he's definitely better on the perimeter. He's been, I want to say, slightly better when it comes to like sliding over and offering some weak side rim protection. I mean, from the last game against the Nuggets, there was a nice block on Jokic he had as a helper, and there are some possessions where, I mean, he looks better vertically. I mean, he does the things correctly. It's still up and down. It's still not like he's not very consistent or impactful, but he's made so many improvements. I mean, even I don't remember which team it was against, but there was a game earlier in the season where there was a transition play, and Zion got a wide open dunk, and Jabari was in the corner and didn't do anything to stop it. He had a really annoying tendency, especially as a rookie, to kind of like to make like a lack of defensive to like not give the effort or make the play he should. Let's say lose his man and then somebody's open for free and he hits the shot, and Jabari is like, what, like what, like he's with his hands up, like he doesn't understand, and all of that. But now, I mean, so there was that play, and a couple of games later, there was a transition opportunity for, again, I don't remember the team, and he kind of got dunked on, but he actually helped and he tried to help, and he's being more active as a defender. So that's been massive. I would say offensively, he's a 4. I do want to see him just a bit more as a 5, as an experiment offensively, because I mean, imagine like playing him against a drop big that's like open threes for days. It's really a tough problem for the defense. But defensively, is definitely more of a perimeter player.
Yeah, very fair assessment of Jabari, and yeah, definitely going to watch out for just him perimeter versus rim protection. I mean, if his defense can level up to where he's a really good player on that end, and then what he brings offensively in terms of just shooting at that size and like having the ability to put the ball on the floor, he's going to be a really good player for them too. They have a lot of really interesting young guys that I'm personally pretty high on. Jabari, not so much, but I gotta keep watching for him a little bit more. Yeah, Yash, you have any other questions you want to ask?
Yeah, I mean, I guess just looking forward to the rest of the season. Obviously, Houston's gotten off to a great start, but do you think they can get any better, like as the season goes on? Like in what kind of way do you think that can happen, or do you think that the start is or they can get worse in some certain aspects? Like, what's your projection for the rest of the season?
A lot of people have made a comparison to Utah from last year. That Utah started off really, really strong. They had the best record in the West after 10 games or something like that. And then they fell off after the trade deadline, mainly. But I think people are missing the point there with that they traded a lot of players because they wanted to lose. If the Rockets, I think one of the main ways they can improve is actually winning some close games. They have a top 10 net rating, but they are only 8-6 because they have lost. They lost the Spurs game, which it was in OT. They lost the Nuggets by a couple of points, the Lakers, the Clippers, and they were leading the Clippers by 5 with 2 minutes remaining. Just the ability to close games, that would really help the team. When it comes to the overall level of play, I think they can improve offensively. I want to say that they will, especially with Jalen Green just being more featured in the offense more consistently and really contributing there. Jabari Smith maintaining his play and just everyone is figuring out how to play with each other. Defensively, I do think they will fall off a bit. It's going to be some shooting luck. It's going to be teams learning to attack them. Şengün, for example, there has been an issue that if you get a foul on him or two, which is not that hard to do, suddenly he's not as active. He's not he's not protecting the paint as well. Like teams can figure out ways to attack the Rockets once they have more film on them. But a good sign there is that when the Rockets played the same team in a similar time span, that usually tells you a bit about the coach and how well they adjust. And the Rockets beat against the Kings and against the Nuggets in the second game, they blew them out after winning the first one. So that was impressive and a really positive sign. I'm just hoping. To me, my prediction is that I do think they're going to, because of the defense give them such a high floor, and because they have an offensive style, I do think they will be at the very least in the playing territory until the very end. I do think they will make the playing tournament and push some team with high expectations out, which that would cause a mess for sure. But how good, I'm not so sure. They can be. Yeah, so far they've been a top 5 team in the West just by how they've played. Probably won't stay top 5, but really, I don't want to rule them out anymore. I was too low on them to start the season. I didn't get used to the winning until like the 5th game of the winning streak. So I'm just gonna let them a chance to show me what they got, because who knows? Let's just enjoy. This is really this might be the only season where this is really like a carefree season in the way that there are no expectations put on them. If they do well, it's amazing. It's a surprise. It's awesome. If they don't do well, then that the goal was just to get competitive. Starting maybe even next year, suddenly there will be expectations. They will be comparing them to the success of last season, and there will be pressure on the team to continue to improve. Now let's just have fun.
Playing with house money right now, Houston Rockets. That's what they're doing. Yeah. Hey, thank you for sharing all your knowledge on the Houston Rockets. This was great hearing all this, all the little tidbits and all these plays that you just recalled from the top of your head. That's pretty awesome, man. Yeah, thank you for sharing all your knowledge on the Houston Rockets. Do you have any writing work or any other work you do on the Houston Rockets that you want to plug for yourself?
I did write on the Apollo Rockets before Apollo Houston before the season started. I kind of stopped now because I'm a bit busy with work and everything, but I might continue eventually. And thank you for having me. It was a great time.
Thank you to everyone for listening to this episode of the Beyond the Arc podcast. Make sure to subscribe and follow wherever you listen to your podcast, and make sure to follow us on Twitter at Beyond the Arc 8. And also make sure to follow our guest, Itamar, at Itamar_17_10 on Twitter. Thank you for listening.